Steen and Company. Interact with the show online at 1700thechamp.com or on Facebook and Twitter at 1700thechamp.
Welcome back to The Drive with Steen and Company. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday. Holy buckets. Producer Jeremy's at FBShow_Jam.
Yep.
I am at Steen on Sports. Let's get this going here. It's one of my favorite subjects or segments and subjects for the week. It is our top of the hour on Tuesdays. It's Tony Cutillo. He is at tcutillo23. He's the host of the Heat Ratio, analyst for Fox Sports, ESPN, NBC. Tony, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, guys. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. I have as soon as I read this over the weekend, and I couldn't wait to ask you, what is the story and what can we expect with FanDuel signing not exclusively, but they have signed with the Denver Broncos to do sports gambling and sports betting. What does that mean for the Denver Broncos?
It means a whole lot of revenue. You know what's funny about that is this isn't the first team, obviously, to be linked to FanDuel or DraftKings per se. And the funny thing is, and I bring this up all the time, is, and you guys will probably remember this, it's probably at least like 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was a no-no to ever mention the word fantasy football in an NFL locker room or in an NFL introduction conference or press conference after a post game, because it had something to do with betting. And at that time, people like Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots had executives from FanDuel who had bought stake in the New England Patriots, or they had bought stake in FanDuel themselves. They had suites and boxes in Foxborough. So this has been going on for a long time. But for right now, I think the biggest deal is that the NFL is going to be a conglomerate when it comes to sports betting very, very soon. And they love every minute of it, because now this is extra money to kind of make up for everything they've lost up to this point to make back tenfold.
Yeah, Tony, we've seen, like with the XFL for one, and I believe the AAF was running them as well. Both had partnered with a fantasy betting site, and it was running odds throughout the game on the ticker underneath the team's name and logo right there next to how many timeouts they had. Was their win percentage or over under percentage? Do you see the NFL slowly inching towards a point in time where we will see them openly putting those kind of figures out there during games?
Oh, 100%. And I think the biggest thing is the live betting. The live in-game betting has become huge. And can you imagine sitting in Denver, you're sitting in Mile High, you're sitting there, and all of a sudden it's the second quarter, it's 4th and 10, and you can put a bet instantaneously on, are they going to get are they going to make it to on 4th down? Are they going to get the first down? Are they not? And that's where the NFL is going to make their money, because the live betting right now has really taken off, and that's where it becomes very interesting, especially when you talk about live events.
I'm gonna have to take my 24 and 21-year-olds' phones away if they start doing that. I mean, my 24-year-old, who I love dearly, Zachary, came over last night. We had dinner, and he's like, "You would not believe the parlay of golfers I got for this weekend." And I'm like, "Oh, I love you, son. Thank you."
As soon as you hear the word parlay, you're in.
Yes. So I do need to ask this, because you said fantasy football, and I get the betting part. The NFL Players Union and the NFL players as a whole, are they okay with the whole fantasy football thing? Or do they like it? Are they against it? I've just never. I don't think I've ever heard how they feel about it.
It's funny, because when we opened up, when you go back, the first player was Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was the first player to ever mention fantasy football in a post-game news conference, and it was like, wow. We can't believe he actually put credence into the word fantasy football. And I think players enjoy it, but then I think they also get annoyed by it, because, the more social media becomes synonymous with everyday life, is more how they see there being basically compared to what their stats should be on a fantasy score sheet, not actually on a real box score. And I think that does annoy them. But I also think it's cool for them to be able to trash talk within one another and make mockeries of it about how many touchdowns they score for their fantasy team or their fans too. So I think it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, you've seen some players kind of on social media have a little bit of fun with it after a bad game or, a dropped pass or something like that. And then you've seen others kind of take a little bit of offense to it. And you talk social media, mostly criticism. I've seen that time and time again when you get these players that have a bad game or a crucial fumble or a drop or something like that. And just their timeline is littered with people upset and angry because it cost them a fantasy game when it cost the player probably a real, actual paycheck.
And on top of that, not only did it cost them a fantasy game, it probably cost them a DFS, basically a DFS game or a tournament, because that's where the next thing is. You're talking about daily fantasy, and your player's supposed to give you that touchdown at the end, and he falls down like Brian Westbrook at the 1 yard line to preserve a game. You're killing them, right? You're absolutely killing them on social media. So, yeah, that's exactly where all that comes from.
Once again, we're talking to Tony Cutillo, the host of the Heat Ratio. Here's the interesting thing, and it happened here. I mean, we had sports gambling started last year right before the NFL season started here in the state of Iowa. And what it did is it made my lovely mother-in-law, Nana, my wife, they became football fans because it made it more interesting that they could put a bet down. And so you turned a sport that already had, just ravenous fans because of all this other. You brought in a whole new, just huge group of people that are watching football and watching the commercials on football and all that just because of the ability to gamble on their phone.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's the block pool effect. I've said that all the time, right? Everybody gets into a block pool. I mean, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, everybody has a couple numbers, and what are they doing? They're watching the Super Bowl. Why? Not because of the game, because of the entertainment, the commercials, and the block pool, the chance to be able to win some money. So this all revolves around money, right? Just like the Wu-Tang Clan say, cash rules everything around me, right? I mean, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to, and that's the NFL in a nutshell.
All right, we got 8 minutes left. Do we want to complain about Major League Baseball or hope for NBA basketball? Which one should we do?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. I think we can complain about both of them. I was so excited watching the race for the record over the weekend and reliving the McGuire-Sammy Sosa deal that, I was hoping, my last hopes maybe this will happen. But like I've been telling you guys for the last 2 weeks, my gut says that there's going to be no season. I really see no turning back right now. And in the NBA, I mean, you have to look at that too. I mean, there's players. I was just reading, Shams just came out with a tweet about, they're going to get compensation taken away if they leave the bubble, 10 to 14-day quarantine, and mandatory deep nasal swabs for corona testing. I mean, we don't really know where we're going with this. And the NFL, you have Zeke Elliott and Cowboys and Texans players testing positive right now. So, I think we took about 8 steps back in the past week, which is not good for anybody.
Hey, Tony, since you mentioned Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, and I haven't got to see all of it yet, people have short memories. Baseball was dying. I mean, dying. Yep. And Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire, before Barry Bonds, brought baseball back. And the fact that the Chicago Cubs haven't, I mean, Sammy Sosa brought that baseball team out of, I mean, as close to bankruptcy as you can get when you have a superstation. But they haven't spoken or done anything. I don't understand that. Mark McGuire's kind of, he doesn't say much. You don't see Barry Bonds. That's taken away a lot. I mean, all three of them, I mean, Sammy maybe not as much as the other two. The other two were very talented before they figured out, hey, I can lift more and hit more if I do this, especially Barry Bonds. I get that it was a stain on baseball, but there has to be a point in time when you bring them back in a little bit, because I don't care what you say, they saved baseball.
No, they absolutely did. I mean, you're coming off the 1994 strike where you don't finish the season, you have no World Series. People basically are booing the sport. They want nothing to do with it. And I talked about it this week. We were talking about this on the podcast this week. The same kind of notion that these guys were kind of blackballed because of what happened, and I don't think it's fair because if you look at it, they really didn't. They didn't take anything that wasn't illegal at that time for this Android, right? Mark McGwire wasn't. He was not hiding it. He had a bottle in his locker room after every interview. I mean, you could see it. This is something he was taking because he obviously knew he would get a little bigger, come back from injury, but it's not fair for them to be able to be blackballed the way they have been.
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, it wasn't technically against the rules. It wasn't illegal with what they're doing it, and it's the steroid era. It's not, McGwire and Sosa did steroids at this time. It was rampant in Major League Baseball locker rooms.
Everybody was doing it. Everybody. And, listen, you could put a spot in the history books if you want to say, call it the steroid, whatever. It wasn't just Bonds. It wasn't just Sosa. Listen, I've been on record. Jeff Bagwell, I'm telling you, I think Jeff Bagwell did it. He's in the Hall of Fame. Mike Piazza, I think he did. He's in the Hall of Fame. You have Hall of Famers that have done this type of thing. So let's just let it go. You put an asterisk, whatever you want to do, but these guys' records and what they did for the game of baseball at that time were huge.
And the one thing that people don't understand, the one that it helped the most was pitchers, because pitchers get paid a lot of money, and it was allowing them to come back quicker and less arm injuries. And I mean, no one ever tested them because they didn't look. I mean, they weren't lifting like that, but it was giving them rapid recovery time. So the amount of pitchers that are in the Hall of Fame right now that were taking steroids that nobody knows about is probably a bigger number than what we could even imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing I always said. It's kind of like a wash, right? So if Roger Clemens is taking steroids and he's throwing 102 against Barry Bonds, who's swinging a bat 10 miles an hour faster, isn't it kind of like a wash as steroids against steroids? So, I mean, at the end of the day, they both have an advantage. So, and again, you're talking about a round ball with a round bat. I don't care what you say. It still takes skill to be able to hit that out of a ballpark at the exact precise point, whether it be the trajectory of a pitch, whether it be the speed of a pitch, doesn't matter. It still takes skill, even without steroids included.
And Barry Bonds, to me, Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before. Then he figured out everybody else was doing this. And when he hit over his 70 home runs, he got walked. Tony, he got walked over 200 times. They didn't allow him to hit, and he still hit 70.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and not only intentionally walk with the bases loaded.
Yes.
I always say that. Will we ever see that again? I highly doubt it. And that's how deadly he was.
So, do you think that for the NBA, and we got about a minute left, are they more worried about not having time for their social causes, or are they definitely concerned about being in the bubble down there? And the NBA probably didn't take enough time to think, hey, we shouldn't bring all these guys down to one area.
I think it's both. I do. I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's some players that are more worried about the social injustice that's going on right now and the movement that they're trying to embark on. They don't want to take away from that. And there's also guys who are afraid of the health aspects, just like we talked about earlier, especially with the other guys coming out in other sports testing positive. So I think it's both as a whole, just different players thinking different things.
And yesterday, just really quick, Jeremy and I both said, it's great they're testing these guys, but they were going to let the Disney employees go home. They weren't going to keep track of them. That doesn't do you any good.
No, that defeats the whole purpose. It really does. That's why there's so many moving legs to this whole scenario that I'm just scared it's never going to happen.
And it makes you think college football, all this stuff. There's so many things you have to do, and it's going to be interesting to see. And Tony, as always, we never have enough time with you, but we love having you on, brother.
No, it's great. Pleasure's all mine.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Tony.